What's up? So I'm jumping on. Welcome, good evening. Welcome to another installment of We As Start Talking Live. We're going to be running an Instagram Live. I'm just waiting for Carl, host of We As Men, to log on. And then we're going to dig into today's topic. So thanks for joining. Give us a couple of minutes to get rolling. We'll get Carl on, and then we will get into today's. So we got this Carl's coming on just now. So thanks for joining us. We got an awesome topic this evening.
Hey man, can you hear me?
I can indeed, sir.
All
Rocking the
right.
headphones.
Yeah, you know what? I wanted to, in the constant effort to try and improve our production quality, whether through our podcasts or even these IG lives, I figured I'd hook up some Bluetooth headphones so I can hear you better, and hopefully you can hear me a bit better than just using the mic from the phone.
Yeah, man. Well, I can hear you pretty clearly, and if it sounds better on the other end as well, then maybe we'll continue headphones. I know I
Yeah,
had some
let us
problems
know.
with my Bluetooth last time, but maybe I'll even my plugins because look, matching, so we
Try
can
them.
rock a set of those. Pretty happy about the hat and t-shirt game today. Got a
Yeah,
little rocking a little Canadian love, a little matching red and red. You know how it goes.
it's been too flippin' hot. I've been in my underwear all day.
So I'm in the basement, aircon's on. It's
Oh, I
cool.
know.
So I was just saying before you jumped on, Carl, that we are got an awesome topic today, and we've got another installment. We're going to be doing this just the same, but hosting it off of my page today, as we're just trying a few things on the back end. Today, we are going to be talking about toxic apologies and changed behavior. So, yeah, pretty interesting topic that we've been playing with for a week or two while we found a date to get this one rolling. I guess we just jump straight in, eh? Uh,
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, as soon as you said toxic apology, it dawned on me that potentially even the use of the word toxic has become toxic.
yeah, it's like the hook though, eh? It's like I went
It
fishing
is.
with an Instagram post, and I'm like, if I put that word in there, someone's gonna be like, oh, you're gonna want to get on there. Um, Aaliyah, great question because you know what? Um, let's just jump straight into it. Here's how I want to start today. So, absolutely amazing that you picked up on that already, just from what we posted and what we wanted to talk about. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell a story. I haven't really literally written a single note for today. Thought about it earlier. I was like, do I need some notes? But I feel like if I tell a story, and I'm a big note person, listen to my podcast and you'll hear the paper rustling in the background. Um, but today I just want to tell a story, and I'm going to tell a story that I feel a bit more comfortable with now because it was a few weeks ago. I'm going to tell the story. I'll try and keep it brief because we want to keep today to like 30, maybe 40 minutes. And then I feel like we'll have some meat. It'll explain why the topic, and then we'll dig into it in a bit more detail. Carl, are you cool with that?
Absolutely, my man. I love your
All right.
stories. I should go put on my slippers and get my jammies.
All right, keep it brief. So here's what happened a couple of weeks ago. Well, let me actually pre-frame it. A couple of months back, I had an incident. I'm going to tell this story. Like I said, I feel more comfortable with it, and it's not like there's anything else to this story or anything else that needs to happen on my end. So I feel a bit more comfortable sharing it with the world. So a few months back, I have a dog. I have a lab beagle mix called Esme, which some of you on here will already know, and you've seen our pictures of her all over social media. We had an incident with a person that lives down our street with two quite hostile, um, they kind of rescue hunting dogs. Anyway, so we had a bit of an issue with them kind of, harassing Esme and kind of, a very mild kind of attempt to kind of attack her by one of them a few months back. And I kind of let this go, and a little bit regrettably so now, but I let this situation go. I had a conversation where I screamed a little bit and had a bit of a conversation about what happened. And they said, oh, we're really sorry, won't let it happen again. We won't make sure they don't get out, da, 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 da. Anyway, 2 weeks ago, this happened again. Now, it wasn't just one dog this time, it was two dogs. So, short version of the story is they were again not on their leash. They attacked my dog. She's absolutely fine. she didn't have to have surgery. There's nothing else I have to deal with from a legal side or anything else. So it's all done with. But she did have a few injuries, and we had to take her to the vet, etc. So this all happened. I dealt with it, how I think most of us would do, and I'm still playing with that in my mind a little bit, kind of on a daily basis in regards to how you react to those situations, and knowing that when you react with, maybe some anger or maybe a little bit hostile to the reaction. Sometimes the dogs then react badly because they pick up on your vibes. That's a whole other conversation. But so she's fine. She's recovered. She had a few nicks, a few marks on her, what have you. I went away. I went to my house. I left the situation. Anyway, so the reason that stirred this conversation, I was telling Carl this story, and then I also shared that a few hours later they came round to the house, and they made a very weak attempt to apologise, and here's how it went down. I think in most situations when people make an apology, we just accept it, but I actually refused to accept the apology. So I just said, I appreciate you coming round, but I refuse to accept your apology. What I want to see is change behavior, because this has happened twice, and you apologized last time and you didn't do anything about it, and I don't accept that. I said, so I appreciate you coming over. I respect that you made an effort, but I want to see you change your behavior. And what I was telling Carl is that they didn't know what to say or do. It was very awkward, not for me, I couldn't care less, but they were very awkward because I don't think they knew how to react to that. I mean, probably no one's ever reacted like that before. So that's the brief overview. I kept it pretty brief, though. I tell you, that was a long story I could have told. So that's where the inspiration for the topic came. So now we can maybe Carl shares his thoughts about that, and then we dig into it.
That story took 5 kilometers to tell when you shared it with me.
Well,
So, I mean, much of this between you and I is going to be redundant because we've had this conversation, but obviously for the sake of this IG Live, let me ask you, is an apology something to be given or something to be taken?
Wow, question. Well, on my experience over the last few weeks and our conversations, I'm going to say it's something to be. Is it something? Maybe it's something to be taken, but maybe it's something to be accepted.
Yeah, I believe an apology is more heavily weighted in it's something you're prepared to receive. And that was what we were talking about, is that moment for you weren't prepared to receive that apology. No matter how verbose and articulate they may or may not have been, what you actually want to know is concrete evidence that the behavior is going to change. So then this started our conversation, and we bolted on the toxic, what is that, an adjective? Because it's such a great descriptive word that oftentimes people rely on a false sense of magnitude of the words, hey, I'm really sorry, or I apologize. And they rely too heavily on how, unfortunately, insignificant those words have become to most adults. Now, it's funny because it makes me think, after you and I had our chat, there is a subcategory, and I want to be very clear, because Gareth, you remember when I had Dr. Kelly Mandarino on the show. And one of the things that she really helped me understand is saying sorry to our children never gets old. Like, if we screw up as parents, the ability to say sorry to our children is really critical, and they can forgive us, they can accept and receive that. But to adults that have built up some sort of a quasi callous to a bunch of false, empty apologies throughout our lives, it's much harder for those words to land with any sort of weight. And I think that's the experience you had.
Yeah.
So the question that you and I were bantering back and forth is, how do we frame, between you and I and to all of the people within the We As community, how do we perhaps reframe, how do we redesign an apology so that people actually get connected to the strength and the magnitude of what it could be? Because maybe an apology comes 2, 3, 4 steps down the line, as opposed to being the knee-jerk reaction. So maybe in your case, your neighbors go out and get dog training, put up a fence, spike a leash to the ground, show up to your house and say, Gareth, we've gotten dog training. We've put up a fence. The dogs are now leashed to the ground. And now I really want to say I'm sorry for what happened. It carries a lot more weight than if it's the first thing you do. But we're all looking for quick absolution. Uh-oh, I screwed up. I'm going to say sorry right away because that makes me feel better.
Yep.
So that's when if I'm giving an apology, whew, well, I said sorry, so I must be indemnified by my actions. But we know that's not true. Case in point, your feelings.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's that, the person probably got the brunt of a whole load of, years and years of just kind of accepting that and almost. So here's how I feel and we spoke about this as well recently about how we're both guilty of taking on others' emotions and others' shit. And I feel like years and years of people apologizing to shift accountability, and then me taking that accountability on, like, what did I do wrong? And that's where I started to question myself almost with the dog thing. At first I was like, oh, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I shouldn't have responded. Maybe I shouldn't have, raised my voice and used some less than desirable words in the middle of the street. But I'm like, no, I shouldn't feel bad for that. I reacted the way I reacted. And when somebody you love's getting hurt, that's how you react. Maybe there's a better way to react, but that's how I react, and I'm okay with it. So I think it's exactly what you were trying to say is it's all about accountability. And people want to take that accountability that they feel because they don't like the feeling of being, the guilt or the accountability of a situation. They want to get rid of it. So they just give it to the person. And I think that also links to a comment Aaliyah just made, which was when it becomes a toxic, because it becomes about the person who has done something wrong as opposed to the person it's been done to. So I think that was a really great point, right? We're apologizing to benefit ourselves. And in this case, maybe it was, and I don't know, because I don't know the person that well, and I don't wish to really, but what the situation was I felt like it was like, I'm going to say sorry because I feel bad as a dog owner, so I'm just going to go apologize and then it will go away. And then didn't know how to react because I'm like, no, sorry, your apology is not going to make this better and it's not going to go away.
And let's sorry to interrupt, but I don't want to get too, you just said something important. Let's look at some evidence. Let's, as opposed to hypothesizing, let's look at some actual evidence. And, Gareth, I know this is true for you. It's certainly true for me. And anybody that's a part of the We As community, whether through the IG Live or any one of our 4 podcasts, do you know how you feel? Rhetorical, obviously, but you know how you feel when you've accepted a hollow apology. If I wrong you, I said, hey, Gareth, I'm really sorry. And if you in turn say to me, yeah, man, that's fine. And then you walk away from that situation and an hour goes by, because you've said, no, it's fine, because you've accepted that apology, it's like I've given you herpes. You can't shake it, right? It's now your burden because you've given me permission to let go of accountability. And I say, hell no. We need to make people much more accountable. When they bequeath an apology, it needs to mean something, because unless it does, I'm not taking it from you. And anybody that's tuning in, and when we repost this, and maybe you can weave this into one of your podcasts, Gareth, but really connect to how you have felt in a moment in your life when you yourself individually have accepted a false apology. It's not guilt. It's almost like you've let yourself down. It's almost like you've fractured a part of your self-worth. It's almost like you say, wait a minute, aren't I better than this?
And you know what? That's exactly, and it was interesting because after I shared that story with you and, and thought it through in my head a little bit, it's interesting that I had this weird emotion that, and as I mentioned earlier, it was kind of like I felt like, I didn't know if that was the right way to respond, but I felt good about it because, and also felt like I kind of felt bad. I felt like it was me kind of being like, oh yeah, I got one up on you because I didn't accept your apology, and I'm the better person because da 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 da. But I've come to realize over the last few weeks that I don't think it is that. I think it's the I think it's in a sense of achievement and evolution in me as a person that I'm able to do that. I'm able to see what is happening within that situation and been able to
Yep.
handle it in a very different way than maybe I would have done in the past. And maybe that it may be what I initially thought was a negative emotional response, in my opinion. Actually, I don't think it was about my ego and about being better than being right. I think it was exactly that. I think I was pleased that I was able to handle the situation in the way in which I wanted to, as opposed to the way in which I thought I should.
Good for you. I
Yeah.
mean, we can take this we can take this very macro, and if you believe even half of what Gareth and I are saying, that accepting a false apology potentially fractures your self-worth. I mean, think about, would you allow somebody to be unkind to you? Would you allow somebody to be disrespectful to you, to offend or insult you? Um, Probably not. I would like to think that you would stand your ground. And I kind of believe that, Gareth, the choice that you made, and we refer to this book often, Atomic Habits, and we've got to get James Clear on the show one day, but it's, if you can gradually change the systems and the acceptance of a false apology, and by not doing that, you're, in a way, you're augmenting a system that will eventually lead to sort of a healthier habit of self-worth. So
Yep.
it's all tied together. And I would really, really urge people. I'm thinking, I watched Rock of Ages last night, and We're Not Gonna Take It is playing over and over in my head on a loop. Anyways, I can't sing, nor will I try, but that's kind of what I'm saying, is we're not going to take it anymore. And maybe what I'm saying is we're not going to accept it anymore, nor should we.
Yep. No, agreed. And I think I kind of Aaliyah was alluding to that in what you said. I think you were on the same lines when we accept what we think is a false apology, we've given permission for somebody to treat us that way.
Yeah.
And maybe they still behave in that same way after. Um, and true as well. Again, exactly my point I was going to make is it one time, and to the point of my story, the first time I kind of sat in it and said, you know what, I've maybe reacted a little bit harshly. It's a one-time thing. They told me they were going to do something differently, so that's why I left it, and I didn't report it, and I didn't take any steps in which to have them educated.
Yeah.
But to Leah's point, the second it happens again and it's a pattern, then it becomes a problem, right? And then accepting it is insanity. So,
Yeah.
and I think that goes to interactions in social environments. It applies to relationships. It applies in any type of relationship, whether that be a family member or a partner or whatever it might be. So it's definitely, it's about setting boundaries and about yourself, having enough self-worth. And this is where I know I've struggled to not react like that in the past, is because I don't think I had enough concept and grasp of my self-worth to be able to react like that.
Yeah.
And to be able to brave enough to say, no, I'm not accepting that. This is what you need to do. And they did give a little bit of that, in that interaction where, these are the things we're going to change, but they'd also done that previously and not followed through with it. So,
Yeah.
So I think that, like you were saying, I think maybe, that approach of here's how I'm going to do things differently. And that leads me to a really interesting point. And I think this is a great segue, maybe away from maybe social kind of interactions or, maybe possible kind of hostile situations where we do react a little differently. Let's flip it and look at it from a parenting standpoint, because this is where my head's been going a lot. Is, as parents, as you said, and when we spoke to a very good friend of mine, Kelly Mandarino, and and speaking about child psychology and how, we should apologize as parents. But I still believe that in that situation, we are even more accountable to change our behavior, because I feel like when we're told, and not to suggest in any means, and I know zero about child psychology, and Kelly's got 15 degrees or whatever it is. So it's very much that she's correct in that we say sorry and our kids are able to accept that. But at the same time are we apologizing for the same thing? Are we raising our voice to our kids, for example, and we're just doing it? And every time we do it, we do exactly what we just spoke about, where we say, oh, I'm really sorry I raised my voice, I won't do it again. And then we do it again 2 days later because we
Yep.
lose our temper. It's exactly the same, but so I'm kind of, I started with that story about it being about other people, and now I want to make it about us, about we as parents specifically, and, and maybe in other relationships. But because I find myself making a lot of apologies as a parent, because I'm hyper aware that I need to do that because I'm not perfect and it isn't just the way I say it is, but am I changing my behavior in those in those interactions, or am I continually making the same mistakes and creating a pattern?
As you know, I'm a big fan of. Is this the first time in recorded history where I'm drinking water and you're drinking wine?
Apparently, we'll make up for it next weekend. Don't worry.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. I've already got the menu planned.
Oh yeah.
As you know, I'm a big fan of call to action, homework, as it were. So I would challenge all of us, and I've thought about this since you and I chatted a couple weeks ago on this subject. We are for the most part sociologically we accept journaling. Okay, we'll do a food log. We'll track our workouts. We'll have diaries. We'll have meditation logs. We got logs for everything. So I'm going to add one more, I guess. I would love, and maybe you and I and anyone else watching and anyone that's part of the we as we repost this, start an apology log, an apology journal. Every time you say sorry, write it down. Write down the circumstances. Write down the situation and write down the outcome. Date it. July 10th, said sorry to Nikki for smashing a glass, whatever. And then give yourself a month and resist the temptation to look back on it day to day to day, but go like a full month and then read through your apology log and start to see if there are patterns that are developing, and if there are key areas where your apologies are perhaps not as significant as you may think they are. Let's say you've got 30 apologies. What if 10 of them are for the exact same thing spread out over that month? Well, then that's a behavior you need to identify, and you need to look at systems to change that behavior to create new habits. Metrics, and look who I'm talking to, you're the king of metrics, but metrics can often help pull the curtains back on things that we like to keep tucked away and ignore. And metrics can help us see reality sometimes. So I would challenge a lot of people. I dare you, create an apology log, journal it for 30 days, and then sit down with a loved one and pour a glass of wine and review it and see what it uncovers.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like it's another letter in the journal process. So some of you guys that have been tuning in for a while or listened on the podcast, you'll know that I'm a big fan of, or have recently, so I'd say, in the evolution of my life, but a big fan of making notes of things and writing down and, not losing sight of those little things. And, we hear a lot about the gratitude journals, that this is what I'm grateful for. And don't get me wrong, I'm fully on board with that. But I started that, and then a good friend of mine got me onto what he calls a brag book. So in there, you brag about something you did really, really well, because that's another great thing that we need to be aware of. It builds our self-worth. And then when I was doing this and doing these two things, so I had my G in my diary, and then I had my B in my diary and my journal. And I was like, but it needs to be more, because it's great to build my self-worth with these things, but I need to continue to evolve. So how do I do that? So then you'll know, you probably heard this a month ago or so on a live, that I added an evolution section to this. So every day, at the end of the day, I write about how I'm going to evolve. So if I did make an apology for something that I realized I've been doing, my evolution was to, what am I going to do? What little step am I going to put in place to evolve from there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like now we add a letter to the journal, and this actually, I just had an idea. Maybe we, I'm going to share it now with the world. Maybe we should make a we as journal. an evolution journal, and we have a letter highlighting everything you need to record on a daily basis.
Well, you know, I'm in. I mean, we always like to think of new ways to create accountability and new ways to help become the best possible versions of ourselves. Um, so let's when you come up to the house for dinner, we'll hash it out. We'll talk through some details.
So I love it. Love it. Feel like we're publishing our first book.
First of many.
Get that shit on Amazon.
Yeah, man.
2-day delivery. Yeah, I love that idea of making catalog of it, because it's too easy to let the little things slip. And it, actually, while you were talking, and obviously making, I make a light of it with the journal thing, but something else came to mind for me as well. And I was actually thinking about this just literally this evening. I have a 3-year-old. Anyone that's had a 3-year-old or has a 3-year-old, or the three-nager, as we like to call her in our house, know that 3 is an interesting age. There's a lot of boundaries being fought and set in our household, as I'm sure it is a lot of us. And when I think about that, that possible apology for, the way we've acted as a parent, raising our voice or doing this or whatever it might be. And I use that because it's such a common thing. And I think a lot of us were raised with the voice raising to use in authority. So I think a lot of us, have mirrored that. And, we all slip into it. I don't like to do it, but I do slip into that pattern sometimes. But what I realized over actually a lot of being quarantined is that there's a way to be strict and to speak with authority without raising your voice. And it's still about connection and communication. And I beat myself up a lot, and I realized I was apologizing for being strict. So I've made a conscious effort to stop that the last little while, because I realized that it's okay to be strict and set boundaries. And if we don't set boundaries, we're raising a future adult that can't set boundaries and can't maintain boundaries. Hence, we're raising someone that is going to struggle in society without the ability to set and maintain boundaries. So it was, for me, it was a different, I can't think of the word now. I've lost it, but I basically did a 180 on my thought process behind it. I was able to say, hey, you know what? I need to maintain authority, but I need to be able to do it in a better way, rather than just repeating the same thing and then it escalating to me raising my voice, for example. As I need to say, no, I'm doing this because I have your best interests at heart and I love you more than anything on the planet, but understand that you need this boundary. And, if you don't like it and it upsets you, that's okay for you to cry about it and not be okay with it. But this is the boundary. And not apologize for that after the fact, because I stand by it.
I mean,
on that.
Well, when you're talking about raising our children, it just dawned on me, and I'm sorry I wasn't making eye contact, but I was just making a note. It makes me think. We have been, and this is not, what I'm about to say is not a judgmental comment, because I'm sure as a parent, I'm just as guilty of it. But we have been conditioned from childhood, and we are conditioning our children from childhood to value false apologies. And what I mean by that is, and I'll just use Harley as an example, just because she's 3, but whatever, maximum 9. How many times have you said to Harley, go and say sorry to Susan? Maxim, that's not cool. Go say sorry to him. We create an environment where we're telling our children to go and do something that they may not naturally be connecting to. We're telling our children, go get a shovel and hollow out the meaning of the word sorry, but go use it because that's what we're supposed to do. Whereas what we should do, and Kelly may chime in on this, but I'll stand by it. What we should do is we should sit our children down and explain the situation and explain how a changed behavior is warranted versus a hollow apology, false apology, I think the term we've been using. So sit down and say, Harley, when you said this or when you did this, look at your friend Susan. Can you see she's crying? How do you think she feels right now? She probably feels very upset. Her feelings are hurt. Now, you're still friends, you still love each other, but I think you guys need to talk about that experience and figure out how to make sure that everybody's cool. Maybe I'm talking to a 9-year-old now, but not just putting your hand gently on the small of your child's back and pushing them towards the person that they need to unload their false apology onto, because then it's no different than your neighbors knocking on your door. Literally no different.
Yep. And you know what comes to mind for me, and we touched on this, I can't remember what live it was, but we spoke about the difference between, we were speaking about leadership as it pertains to many things, but I think about that as the difference, right? Rather than bossing our children around and telling them you need to say sorry, leadership, in how I kind of paint this picture in my head, and actually thinking at it, I think there's occasions where I have done this and occasions obviously where I haven't, but to say what you just did, has upset mummy, for example. How do you think she now feels? Great. And this is something I was talking to Harley about this evening before bed, is what do you think you could do better? And it was about wasting time at bedtime and not having, saying you're not going to get these things and I'm going to take them away from you, is what do you think you can do better with your time to ensure that you can have the things you want before bed? So how can you now, what do you think is a suitable response?
We're losing you. I don't know if you can see that at your end.
No.
You are very pixelated and we're having a lot of trouble hearing you.
Okay. Let's have a little look.
And I don't care about seeing your gorgeous face, but I want to hear what you're saying.
Okay, how does that sound now?
You sound pretty decent, but you still look like a gas station CCTV footage.
Oh, well, hey, as long as you can hear me. It might just be internet signal might be dropping a bit. So, sorry, to get back on track. Yes, so what?
Still there, or Gareth started this IG live tonight, so I don't know if everyone else gets kicked off. Give him a sec to get his connection sorted out. Super flattering look. There we go. Come on, bud. Oh, Jen Anthony, great. The moment that my wife signs on, look what she's looking at. Look what you're doing. Are you pooched?
Okay. How about that?
Sure. I don't know. You're not saying anything.
Any good? Can you hear me? Is it
Yeah.
clear? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was all about. Hey, Jen. It was all about how we try to get our children. And at 3, maybe it's just that it depends on the age of your child, but having our understand is how does she think she should handle this? Like I said to her, how do you think you can create more time before we come to your bedroom so you can have time to do these things that you want to do, rather than threatening to take things away? To which we eventually got to, she was like, I could brush my teeth quicker. That's a great step. That's a great first step for a 3-year-old. Yes, you could brush your teeth quicker. Great. Because we're not spend 7 minutes brushing your teeth, meaning we've got more time to read a book. So if it was an apology situation, it would be that. Maybe we try and encourage them to come to their own conclusion, which is the point I was trying to make about leadership, is I don't go in and tell people what to do. I try to go in and give them ideas and then have them come up with a great solution to solve their problem, which is most of the time what we're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the true method of learning from an experience is to arrive at that knowledge with some guidance, but to get there with your own conclusions, right? To get there on your own. And one of the greatest examples, and I'm sure you can appreciate this because you drive and I drive. Let's say I give you a point to get to, ABC Smith Street. And if you follow your GPS to the letter, your Waze or your Google Maps, and you arrive at 123 Smith Street, there's a good chance you probably don't know how to get back there again, because you've just followed the direction that has been laid out before you with really minimal effort. You're not participating in that journey. You're really just a passenger. Whereas if I were to say to you, Gareth, you've got to go here, then you turn a left, then you turn a right, and if you've actually got to connect to that journey and focus and take in landmarks and soak in and absorb your environment and what's around you, if you have to be present in that drive, which if you don't have GPS, you've got to be very aware of where you are in time and space. Otherwise, you're not going to arrive at your destination. The journey through life and all the other facets that are swirling around, and self-worth and apologies is just one of billions. It's not dissimilar from that. Leadership and the journey of learning, the journey of becoming the best possible version of yourself is, do you choose to use Waze, or do you choose to navigate it through your own fruition? It's a brutal metaphor, but because I use Waze a lot, but I can speak firsthand. Last week, we drove to a cottage. I've been to this cottage 4 times, and every single one of those occasions, I have used GPS to get there. And Jen and I left, and I didn't know how to get out. I was lost at a place I'd been to 4 times, and I've got a good sense of direction. I can't imagine if you had a bad sense of direction. So the metaphor is, you have to empower yourself and those around you, whether it's your children or your staff or your partners, to make sure that they're navigating that journey on their own with your guidance and your support.
I can't really, I got nothing else to say after that ending statement. Absolutely.
If I had a microphone.
Yeah, just drop it right now. Yeah, like mind blowing. It's exactly that. Like we can't be everybody's GPS. It's not going to get us where, and
that's it.
Yeah, we can't be everyone's GPS, especially our kids. Yeah. It's so important that and we talk so much in the we as family about being the best possible version of ourselves, and we often come to exactly the same point whenever we have a conversation, and it's about how we're not only being our best possible version, but everyone around us, and our kids are the nucleus of that, because they're the next generation. They're the people that have to live on this planet. And I actually recorded a podcast last night, the night before, and I talked a lot about that, about how we have to role model, and we have to be that example, and we have to show our kids the way. And you'll hear about that next Tuesday when it gets released. So I think that's a perfect spot to wrap it up. Before we wrap it up, I just want to say, obviously, we started this live on my channel today, but you'll also see the We As Start Talking channel, which Carl is on right now. I encourage you to head over there and have a look if you haven't already. Follow our page. You will see all of our weekly podcasts. So we have a brand new episode Monday through Thursday every single week. So jump on there. You can download the episode. I drop the links in on that page. They're in the bio on a weekly basis, along with all of the Spotify links, so you can listen. And just get on board and start talking with us, because we want to hear what you have to say. We want you on as guests, and I don't know if Carl has anything else to end up with after that little publicity.
That's it. Just a recap for the two takeaways is for everybody to start their own apology log, and for everybody to start to try and mentally envision that GPS versus finding your own way example that we just talked about. Are you? Yeah. So thank you for setting this IG live up, brother.
Always, man. Always. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. We got some cool new episodes coming in the next couple of weeks as well. So look out for those. And yeah, I mean, what else can we say but be the best possible version of yourself you can be.
Yeah, man. And look, if anybody wants us to talk about something in particular, drop us a DM through either Gareth's channel or the We As Start Talking channel. We don't have all the answers, but certainly, and more importantly, we don't have all the questions. And sometimes they're more important than the answers, because that's what gets us to start talking.
Yeah, man.
So on that note, love and peace, brother.
Peace out, guys. See ya.